We, of course, continue with our focus on tourism this tourism month. KZN has many tourist attractions, but it hasn't been business as usual since the start of the problematic lockdown and pandemic. Now, hospitality, restaurants and travel businesses are preparing to kickstart the sector as lockdown restrictions start to ease. Reporter Azwifaneli Mphaphuli is looking at how those involved in the sector, including B&Bs, airports and restaurants, are picking up the pieces. She joins us now from the King Shaka International Airport. So empty, Lethiwe, that airport compared to how it would be during this time of the year, especially before the pandemic. How have these airlines been coping with less international travel, especially?
Well, good morning, Maseko. What I can tell you is that the city of Durban has been badly affected by the pandemic and also the recent unrest that we experienced in the province back in July. And this has also affected air travel as well. Yesterday, I was speaking to different businesses across the city, big businesses, on how they've been affected by this pandemic and how they've been, or if they have plans moving forward to basically rebuild and try to attract more tourists into the city and into their businesses. And they were telling me that the posture has been very difficult, but they do have some plans put in place to try and attract more tourists. And yesterday, the mayor of the city, Kaunda, did launch the My City, My Heritage campaign, which basically aims at attracting more businesses and also attracting more tourists into the city. And this, of course, is done as the lockdown levels are predicted to be going lower. But at the moment, I'm going to be talking to AXA about some of how aviation has been affected since the past year. I'm now joined by Azwifaneli Mphaphuli, who is the general manager for King Shaka Airport. Good morning, ma'am. Firstly, my question has to do with air travel. How has aviation been affected over the past year?
No, thank you very much, Lethiwe. From the start of the pandemic, actually for 2020, we have seen that the aviation industry is actually being affected by 60% decrease, and this has been the largest globally since we started tracking passenger numbers since the 1950s. And if you look at it again from a recovery point of view, air connectivity globally, from a domestic point of view, it is coming to a recovery around a decline at 20%, but that is much better compared to the international air connectivity, which is actually coming up at a 71%. And what that basically just means is that when you start saying, when are we going to see the numbers that we have been seeing in 2019, from an African region point of view, we are actually only coming to be coming back around 2024, 2025. And that also has to do with our domestic market. And at the same time, if you look at it from a King Shaka point of view, we actually saw that our recovery currently year to date, we are sitting at 43%. And from an international point of view, we are coming along at 7% year to date. And at the same time, the changes that have actually happened, you can take note in terms of the processes, of course, where now it is different from how previously we are even seeing that passengers would be focusing on long queues. But currently, they are actually looking at the health measures that the airport has actually put in place. And as a result, from an airports company South Africa point of view, King Shaka is one of the airports where we are accredited by Airports Health Council to be an airport that actually complies with the aviation standards, actually also in terms of the measures that we have implemented. So we can actually be then compared to what the world out there has implemented as well in terms of the measures.
Now, Mr. Mphaphuli, another thing is that a lot of airlines had to be grounded during this time. Obviously, that has affected the aviation industry. How have you been dealing with that?
I confirm that it's actually not only them, as I indicated from an airline point of view, and because if you look at the value chain, all of us have been affected. From a King Shaka point of view, currently we are operating at a 50% of airlines that were actually operating pre-COVID. And that being said, it is from a domestic side, we've got 5 airlines that are currently operating, being Seme, being FlySafair, being Kulula, being Come, as well as Airlink. And from an international point of view, we have got Qatar as well as Emirates. But with all that being said, it's a collaborated effort, because from a King Shaka point of view, we saw that we dropped by 59%, if you are looking at it from the numbers that we were doing in 2019. But we are still hopeful, because our recovery is at 41% if you look at us overall, and the collaboration that we keep on doing with the industry players, not only from an aviation but also from the tourism industry players, because all of us are within the same value chain. Us going out there to indicate the fact that we are actually safe for you to travel through our airports, because we say protect you, protect us, because that's one of the things that says the country has said put on your mask. We are saying also social distancing is what is required. Those are some of the things that we have implemented, and also ensure that you also have sanitizers as you move along. So it is actually very safe to travel.
And my last question for you has to do with budgets. A lot of people are traveling on a tight budget because of the economic situation in the country. Have you catered for those people?
I think with our domestic market right now, that catering has happened, and also because as an industry we work collaboratively, as I have already indicated, with the other players. So you will see that we, from an AXA point of view, as our strategy now says we want to actually retain and sustain what we have, is to actually do something that is called passenger mobilization. This is where a funny that is actually coming from a township needs to be aware of the fact that if I'm actually flying from Durban going to Johannesburg, I can actually pay 450 or pay 480 with the domestic airlines that are currently operating. And at the same time, with me paying that amount, it's actually maybe the same as what I would have paid if I'm traveling with a bus or with a taxi. So with that being said, I'm saying as South Africans, we are actually so lucky, and there is an opportunity for us to venture into our own country so that we can actually stimulate the tourism industry ourselves, because we are seeing that borders are still maybe opening up, but it doesn't stop us with all the measures that have been put in place to actually then start going and visiting. You were nicely talking about what KZN have done, because with tourism, SA tourism, Durban tourism, as well as TKZN, for us this collaboration, as I indicated, it is not only from an aviation, but you also take the different packages that within the tourism industry are being offered. So flying, because it's also part of this value chain, you actually have got, you pay even an affordable price for you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Letiwe.
So that Maseko is the general manager for King Shaka Airports. She did indicate that they've lost almost 60% of their clientele because of the pandemic. And that just goes to show that the rebuilding process has a long way to go. And hopefully this month, the tourism month, will attract more tourism coming into the city.